Welcome to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam, to ETHDam.
What's up, everybody? We're all back from lunch and full. I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired, so I won't keep you too long. What's up, Aaron? Hope you're feeling all right. Good, good. So yeah, let me tell you why I'm so happy to be here. I don't know if you guys were here yesterday for Ellie's opening remarks, but this whole conference began with her paying homage to peer-to-peer cash and the Cypherpunk ethos. And that is becoming harder and harder to find in our community. I think you said yesterday that there's a conscious effort here to make crypto libertarian again. And yeah, I had to come all the way from Florida to find that, so kudos. And hopefully, yeah, we can do this more often. We get more libertarian and crypto-anarchists back in this space. I remember years ago at like a meetup in New York, this is like 2018, 2019, somebody, I don't want to call anybody out, I don't know if you guys know the Crypto Finally girl. She was like hosting a space and she would say something like, you know, it's all finance bros and stuff like that. And she was, well, you know, it started out as all libertarians, but where are those silly libertarians now? And of course, I'm in the back. I just put my hand up like, we're still fucking here, you know, sorry. Okay, so what is agorism? Well, what I'm going to tell you is, what I'm not going to tell you, or I'm not going to try to convince you, is that politicians are bad people, right? That should be obvious to everybody. If you can't tell that, turn on the news for a second and look on the world. They have murdered 20,000 children in Palestine in the last 6 months alone, okay? So instead, I will only be speaking to those who already understand that politicians are evil. And to you, I would say that agorism is the only game in town. There is no other route to freedom or liberty. It is the most radical version of anarchism. We believe that liberty is only achieved through entrepreneurial engagement with the black and gray markets. That is the only possible route. I call it entrepreneurial disruption. It was not from the benevolence of politicians that US states began to liberalize drug laws. It wasn't voting that brought an end to communism in Eastern Europe. It was the underground market, or Nalevo as they call it. Gandhi did not kick the British out by use of arms. He didn't even raise a fist to do it. He did it by encouraging Indians to march to the sea, get their own salt, and deny the British authorities the tax revenue that they were enjoying from their monopoly on salt. And I can go on and on. We can enumerate examples all day long. But you will notice that in all of the examples, the one constant is that agorism is always and necessarily non-violent. And it is thus the only logically consistent to which voluntarists can acquiesce to. All right, this is not the case for the voter, by the way, who forces a master upon his neighbor, right? It is not the case for the brute who slays the tyrant only so that he or she may become the next tyrant, right? So as I said, agorism is the only game in town if you are interested in nonviolence and voluntarism. And of all of the tools in the Agorist toolbox, I think it's become crystal clear that cryptography is the most powerful tool that we have. If Agorists are carpenters, well then cryptography is our hammer. In 3D printing, Agorists use cryptography to transform illicit objects into code. And then we can take that code across borders much more easily, where we transform that code back into the physical object that was prohibited, like a gun. Self-plug real quick, 3dprintergobird.com, where we sell 3D printer supplies for cryptocurrency. So you don't have to access KYC payment platforms, right? That's what the whole point of P2P cash is. In operationally secure communications, we use cryptography to protect our speech from politicians, and in money, we use cryptography to protect our money from politicians. I mean, how many people here, show of hands, want to fund a genocide of children? Me neither, me neither. So we all know that their crimes are funded not through taxation, but through inflation. And if you want to avoid inflation, you have to minimize your use of fiat currency. So to do that, you need an alternative form of money, which is where crypto comes in. Unlike fiat currency, most market-based commodities generally tend to rise over time. which means you're likely to make a little bit of money if you're in crypto long enough. And if enough people catch on to this trick, well, we have the potential to actually break the banking cartel's monopoly. But it is completely irrational for anyone to think that a cartel of banks, or anyone else, would voluntarily give up their monopoly on the issuance of currency. If you or I had the ability to print money, would you just voluntarily hand that over? Of course not. So the pushback was always inevitable. And a lot of us saw this coming a mile away. All right, enter the war on crypto. You know, for the last, 5 years, we've all seen tremendous persecution of crypto libertarians and anarchists. Numerous high-level figures have been persecuted. The SEC has been weaponized to attack everyone from Coinbase, Kraken, who else? Uniswap. Yesterday I met Alexei Pertsev, who was here from Tornado Cash. He knows all too well what I'm talking about. CZ from Binance. They put him in jail. I mean, Richard Hart just had his case dismissed by the SEC. Obviously, the Crypto 6 and Ian Freeman, who are still under persecution to this day. Roger Ver, my dear friend, who is still being persecuted to this day, not for not paying taxes, but for supposedly giving them the wrong number, which in reality is all because he wrote the book Hijacking Bitcoin, which proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the feds, the intelligence community, infiltrated the cryptocurrency space in order to agitate for small blocks and therefore render cryptocurrency useless as a competitor to the banking cartel's monopoly. So as a result of this war on crypto, many of us who previously thought that pseudonymity would be sufficient now realize, myself included admittedly, now realize that privacy cannot be optional. It just can't. I think that's pretty obvious at this point. And in my opinion, Zano is the best chance that we have of achieving a private and versatile blockchain. As the Zano ecosystem continues to unfold, I think it's going to be easier and easier for Agorists to integrate these tools into their lives to sort of normalize privacy for everybody. Just recently, we've seen things like Zano Bay, which is like a Silk Road-like peer-to-peer trading platform, Zano.cash, a self-custodial point-of-sale cash register, and an app to go along with it. Aaron Day has the WooCommerce plugin that he's just released. Zanox.io, where you can buy gift cards using Zano. Freedom Dollar, the first ever private stablecoin. Every time I say it, someone's like, well, 5 years ago there was this project. Okay, but that didn't work, right? So now we have the Freedom Dollar, which is like actually stands a chance of actually working. And I don't want to steal too much thunder, but I think if you're concerned about CBDCs, you better hold some Freedom Dollars. And there's tons of other projects in the works. Again, we can go on all day like this. But all of these tools come together to make life easier for people seeking to integrate privacy into their lives, for crypto-anarchists seeking to conceal their activities from political parasites. Yeah, so I guess just to wrap it up here, what I've done is I've sort of painted a picture of like a war between bankers and a war between freedom fighters. You guys, right, the cryptocurrency space. And in all wars, there will be casualties. That's a given. But in the end, guys, the market or the agora, same thing, always wins. So stay optimistic, don't lose sight of the goal, and don't lose sight of that cypherpunk ethos that Ellie started us all off with. All right, thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Oh, you're not getting off the stage.
I'm not getting off the stage?
No, absolutely not. There's a QR code at the bottom, which leads you to Slido. Really easy. You just put hashtag ETHDam. That's the code. This is your moment to ask Sal anything. What should they not ask? Those are the good questions.
Anything is on limits. Everything is...
All right, he said it. What did Zen? No. Yeah, can you write down the apps? Was it Zeno? No. Why Zano? Okay. Obviously, the end of your talk, raise some questions.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Zano, Trump. Zeno or Zano? I don't know, Andre. Is it Zeno? I'm pretty sure it's Zano. I asked him if it was Zano or Zano. He said potato, potato. So yeah, the apps. There's a lot of, I mean, in terms of apps, I was really kind of talking about more about the infrastructure surrounding Zano. So there's Zano Bay, which is kind of like Pirate Bay, but for Zano. Zano.cash, which is a self-custodial point-of-sale cash register. There's an app to go along with it. I'm not sure if that's released yet, but I'm pretty sure it is. Obviously, Aaron Day will tell you more about his WooCommerce plugin for Zano, that it facilitates e-commerce. I mean, these are huge. If you think about these tools, we're actually enabling real-world commerce in a private way that politicians cannot spy on. I mean, think about how huge that is. Like most of crypto, it's very KYC friendly. A lot of people, like the maximalists, they cheer on regulation. Whenever, some new regulator comes down on their side or does something friendly, they give themselves a pat on the back. I don't want to work with the regulators. I want to defeat the regulators. The whole purpose of being here is not to acquiesce to their rules, but to make them acquiesce to us, to sound money, to get them to stop robbing everybody and committing murder and genocide. I mean, it should be obvious at this point. And Zanox.io, where you can buy gift cards using Zano. So, if you, I don't know, we were talking about this earlier. I think if you want to get like tickets or something like that, plane tickets, you can get all sorts of things like that. So check some of those out. Obviously, there's the Zano app, which has a built-in private messenger service, ionic or potentially iconic swaps, built-in decentralized exchange. I mean, it's extremely versatile. This is why I find it so appealing to Agorists, because you can do so much with it.
I have a question.
Please.
How did you become an agorist?
Actually, it was at Porkfest, where I'll be in June if you guys are going to be in New Hampshire. So I was an anarchist. I was actually a warmongering Republican.
Okay.
And I voted for George Bush. The first time I ever voted, it was such a disaster. They'll never do it again.
Never do it again. She doesn't want to hear it. She doesn't want to hear
the word
it.
George Bush, and she starts crying. She's
like,
smart.
No. Here you go.
But yeah, I thought to myself, what a disaster. I'll never vote again. And it was like one of the Ron Paul debates.
Okay.
And I remember thinking to myself, all these people on stage sound like crooks, but the one guy who makes sense is the one who I'm supposed to think is crazy.
Sorry, I'm torturing my baby at the same time. It's hard for me to hear how you became an agorist by voting for the last time.
So I voted for George Bush. I learned my lesson. I found Ron Paul, and I found libertarianism. And then I went to Porkfest, and I saw people actually living by these principles. They're putting them into practice. And I thought, man, it's actually possible to live free now. I don't have to canvass a neighborhood or work a phone bank. I can do this right now with a 3D printer, a little bit of cryptocurrency, maybe some gold and silver, and you're halfway there. So.
All right.
What is the best tool for organizing local gray market with crypto or precious metals? So I honestly think that crypto is better for exchanges because it's not confiscable. Precious metal is great because it's very stable. It's not as volatile as cryptocurrency, so it's great for savings. What I tell people is you have to become your own bank, and you do that by replacing fiat currency with a medium of exchange. Use a cryptocurrency, something like a privacy chain, or even like a peer-to-peer cash chain would be well. But use precious metals for savings because it's less volatile.
There's an anonymous person in the crowd insisting on you giving a take on Trump being a Trojan horse for crypto. I know you said politicians are evil earlier.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on
Of course, he's a Trojan horse. These are parasites. These aren't people, like they're politicians. These are the lowest of the low. Even the cockroach is more noble than the politician, because when the cockroach steals food from your cabinet, they don't understand the concept of property rights. Human beings have a rational faculty. So when the politician robs you, they lower themselves beneath even the cockroach. So Trump, he will, and Aaron and I, again, we've spoken a lot about this, but like he'll allow the Hawk Tuah girl to rug pull her followers. But Ian Freeman and Roger Ver, he won't stop persecuting them for trying to create real-world freedom and financial sovereignty. So the man's not good for crypto. He's only interested in, he'll trot his sons out at these Bitcoin conferences and stuff like that, and he'll sell NFTs and make a bunch of money. But when it comes time to actually doing the important work, he's nowhere to be found. So, I think of course he's a Trojan horse. Yeah.
All right. Is losing your seed phrase in a boating accident still a valid method?
You gotta do what you gotta do. Operational security, step one.
All right. I think we're good. Any other? Okay. How can you support centralized exchanges and be sad when their leaders are thrown in jail when agorism is exactly about eliminating their kind? I think someone does not like CZ.
How can you support centralized exchanges and be sad?
I think that's their comment about CZ.
So I don't want anyone thrown in jail who's done nothing. If you're a peaceful individual, you have no right to be thrown in prison. No one has the right to initiate violence on an otherwise peaceful person. So CZ is completely compliant with whatever rules he's got to be compliant with, but I don't want to see anybody thrown in jail. I mean, you have to make a living, right? We can't. What I try to tell people is be as gray as you possibly can, right? Just minimize your reliance on the state apparatus. Can you do it 100%? Probably not. Probably not. But you got to do it as much as possible. So I don't knock CZ for trying to be compliant, if that's what the point was. Hijacking Bitcoin, yes. So essentially, if you read the book that Roger wrote, which he was arrested, what, a week later, less than 2 weeks later, he essentially proves that central intelligence agencies, and this is all backed up. There's even been Twitter threads about it more recently. I was just reading one the other day from Peter Todd. These people infiltrated the cryptocurrency community, and what they did was they agitated for Bitcoin maximalism. They wanted to keep blocks small because they understood the economics of it better than most of the average users, right? They understood that small blocks means that a coin cannot be used as an efficient medium of exchange, right? Transaction fees, wait times, we all know the whole deal, right? So they did this in order to render it a non-competitor to the banking cartel's fiat monopoly. And we'd all suspected that, right? But I think in Roger's book, he laid out the case line by line and proved it. And that's the real reason why the state is persecuting him. It has nothing to do with paying the wrong number. Roger would be willing to pay, I can't speak for him, but I'm sure he'd be willing to pay whatever number to end this persecution so we can get back to living a normal life. So it's much more about his advocacy for freedom and liberty than a couple numbers.
All right, Sal, your time is up.
That's
Thank
it,
you
kicking
so
me out?
much. Thank you so much for joining us and crossing the
Thank you
Atlantic
all.
to being
Thank
here.
you.